Welcome back everyone. In this video, we'll be replacing the brake handle on the 2022 Apollo City. The tools we'll need for this video are a Phillips head screwdriver, a heat pen, a 2, a 2.5, and a 4mm Allen key, some heat shrink, and some flush cutters. So for the purpose of this video, we're going to be taking the handlebars off for better visibility. To do that, we're going to use a 4mm Allen key to remove these two screws right here. That's 1 and 2. The next step will be to remove our brake cables so we can pull our handlebar off. Now to remove the lines, what we'll need to do is loosen our adjustment screw, but if our brake lines are too tight, we can loosen the drum brake to release the tension. Just like this, we can now pull it from the bottom, just like that. And we'll repeat the process on the other side. Same thing on this side, we'll align this right here and pull the brake line out, just like that. The next step will be to gently pull the handlebar assembly off and disconnect our comm cable. Just like this. Now, if you're following along with the handlebars still on the scooter, the first step you'll need to do is take a screwdriver and remove the 2 display screws right here. This will be a Phillips head screwdriver, and just like that, we have removed our 2 screws. The next step will be on the other side of the handlebars. We'll remove this grub screw right here with a 2mm Allen key. And just like this, we can put it to the side. Now to remove the display, all we need to do is gently push in the thread hole where the screws were, and the display should come out just like this. Make sure you don't pull too hard to damage the wiring inside. Next up will be to take a 5mm Allen key and loosen our brake handle screw. We just have to loosen it enough so we can move it like this. Don't pull it because we don't want to damage the wiring inside the display. After we've loosened our brake handle, we can take a 3mm Allen key and remove the screw holding the throttle in place. Just like this, we can now move our throttle freely. Now we can gently pull our display out just like this. As we can see, the 2 wires coming from the throttle and the brake. We want to gently untangle the bundle right here. For the next step, we'll need to take off the brake handle. And for this, we'll need to cut our heat shrink and disconnect our connector. So we'll take some flush cutters and gently cut into the heat shrink. Making sure we don't damage any of the wires. Just like this. We can now pull apart the connector like this and gently remove the brake handle. We want to make sure when we're pulling the brake handle, we don't have the wire hook onto anything and damage the brake sensor inside of the handle. This part right here will be the most important, making sure the connector goes through smoothly. Now that we've untangled our wiring bundle, we can see the first wire right here coming up to one connector, which is our brake handle connector. So we'll take some flush cutters and gently cut into the heat shrink. Making sure we don't damage any of the wires. Just like this. We can now pull apart the connector like this and gently remove the brake handle. We want to make sure when we're pulling the brake handle, we don't have the wire hook onto anything and damage the brake sensor inside of the handle. This part right here will be the most important, making sure the connector goes through smoothly. We can gently pull our wire, and as we can see, we don't have a lot of space between the rubber insert and the throttle. So what we can do is take our flush cutters or something to pry out the rubber to give us more space. Just like this. That should allow us to remove the wire completely without damaging anything. There we go, just like this. We can now completely take the brake handle off, just like this. The next step will be to take the brake handle and reinsert it onto the handlebar. Just like this. We can now take the wire and push it through to the other side. We can move the throttle around to get the brake handle connector through, and we can even move the wires from the throttle to have more leeway. Now we can take an Allen key, worst case, and gently push the connector into the hole. We can put the throttle back in place and finish pushing the connector onto the other side, just like this. So now that we know we have a clear path for the wire, what we'll want to do is pull it, put the throttle back in its proper place, and reinsert the rubber that goes in the handlebar groove. This is for waterproofing purposes, so water doesn't go into the display cavity. And just like that, we can push the cable once again to the other side. And put the brake handle in the proper place. Just like that. Now the next step will be to take our brake sensor wire and connect it back to our display. But first we want to take some heat shrink and put it on the wire. We can now reconnect the two connectors like this, put the heat shrink over it, and take our heat pen to heat it up. Just like that. We can now make sure the heat shrink is well placed and leave it to cool down. The next step will be to take all of our wiring, coil it back up, and reinsert it into the display cavity. Make sure you're not pinching any of the connectors while placing it back in. That should do it. So we'll now flip the handlebars around. Now when putting the display back in, we want to make sure we have enough slack on the comm cable. So what we need to do is pulling gently on the comm cable when pushing the display back in to make sure there is some left over at the bottom. The next step will be to take our screws and screw our display back in. That's one. And two. Now we want to make sure to not over tighten these screws because they are screwing into plastic, so as long as the display is tight, you should be good. Now before we put our grub screw back in, we want to make sure our display is flush with the handlebars. If it is not flush, that probably means there's a cable pinched between the display and the cavity. So we'll insert our grub screw with our 2mm Allen key, just like that. Same as the other two screws. We don't want to over tighten this because it is screwing into plastic. The next step will be reconnect the comm cable, just like this, and reinsert the handlebars onto the stem. So before we readjust the handlebar components, we'll put our grip back on the handlebar. So we simply need to slide it on, just like that. Now we can take a 3mm Allen key to adjust the throttle. We want to align it with our other throttle for consistency. And we want to make sure it's tight enough that the throttle won't move up or down, because that can be very dangerous when we're riding. The next step will be to adjust our brake handle accordingly on the handlebar and tighten it with a 5mm Allen key. There we go. We can check that nothing moves, and that's perfect. We can now take our brake line and reinsert it into the brake handle by passing the line into the holder right here. We then put it back in place and insert it into the adjustment screw as well. So we can tighten that, and we're all set up. We can now put our stem screws back in, securing the handlebar in place. Now, after completing the repair, what we'll need to do is make sure all the components work. So we'll turn on the scooter. This is the first good sign. Next up, we can test the brakes. The sensor works perfectly. And that's how you replace a brake handle on the 2022 Apollo City.